The massive doors of the Galactic Council chamber opened with a deep hum that echoed through the vast space. Hyunwoo Kim walked forward slowly, his black diplomatic uniform a stark contrast against the gleaming white floor. Above him, the curved ceiling stretched so high it seemed to touch the stars themselves. This was the center of galactic power, and today he stood alone at its heart. The chamber was built to intimidate. Rows of seats rose in a perfect circle around the central floor, each one occupied by a different alien species. Some looked like insects made of living crystal. Others appeared as floating clouds of gas held inside metal suits. A few resembled giant lizards with too many eyes. All of them stared down at the single human with expressions that ranged from curiosity to open hatred. Hyunwoo had been Earth's ambassador to the Galactic Council for 3 years. He had walked this path many times before, but never under circumstances like these. Today was different. Today, the galaxy had called humanity to judgment. At the highest seat sat Council Prime Valdris of the Cathari Empire. His blue skin gleamed under the chamber's lights, and his 4 arms moved in precise gestures as he spoke. The Cathari were old, older than most species in the galaxy, and they acted like it. They believed age gave them wisdom. They believed wisdom gave them the right to rule. Human ambassador, Valdris began, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber's perfect acoustics. You stand before this council to answer for the crimes of your species. Hyunwoo nodded politely but said nothing. He had learned long ago that silence often revealed more than words. Around him, the alien representatives shifted in their seats. Some made sounds that might have been approval. Others simply watched with predatory patience. To his left, the Vorthak delegation clicked, their crystalline claws against their armrests. The sound was sharp and rhythmic, like rain on metal. Their leader, a creature that looked like a walking diamond, leaned forward with obvious interest. The Vorthak were warriors, and they respected strength above all else. They saw humanity's silence as weakness. To his right, the Nathali shimmered inside their containment suits. These beings were made of gas and energy held together by technology Hyunwoo didn't fully understand. They communicated through color changes that flashed across their transparent bodies. Right now, those colors were shifting between red and orange. Hyunwoo had studied enough Nathali culture to know this meant anger mixed with anticipation. The charges against humanity are serious, Valdris continued. Unauthorized expansion into 17 star systems, development of prohibited weapons technology, complete militarization of your home system, refusal to pay tribute to the lawful authorities of those regions. Each word fell like a hammer blow in the silent chamber. Hyunwoo listened calmly, his hands clasped behind his back. His face showed nothing but polite attention, as if Valdris were discussing the weather rather than delivering what amounted to a death sentence for human civilization. The Zephyrian Republic has filed formal complaints, Valdris went on. A bird-like creature with silver feathers stood up in the mid-level seats. Its voice was high and musical, but the words it sang were harsh. Human colonies in our territory refuse to acknowledge our authority, the Zephyrian delegate sang. They pay no tribute. They follow no laws but their own. They treat us as equals when we are clearly their superiors in age and wisdom. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. The Zephyrians were traders and bureaucrats, masters of galactic commerce. If they said the humans were breaking economic law, other species listened. Another alien rose to speak. This one belonged to the Molten Hegemony, a species that looked like living rock with veins of lava running through their bodies. When they spoke, their voices sounded like avalanches. Human ships appear where they should not be, the Molten delegate rumbled. They move through our space without permission. When our fleets move to intercept them, the humans vanish like smoke. This is not the behavior of a respectful junior species. More aliens stood to add their complaints. The Aquatic Confederacy spoke of human colonies that refused to share water rights. The Singing Worlds complained about human miners who ignored traditional territorial boundaries. Each species had a story of human defiance, human independence, human refusal to accept their place in the galactic order. Through it all, Hyunwoo stood quietly and listened. His dark eyes moved from speaker to speaker, but his expression never changed. If the aliens were looking for fear or anger or even defiance, they found none. The human ambassador simply absorbed their words like a sponge absorbing water. Finally, Valdris raised one of his four hands for silence. The chamber fell quiet immediately, the only sound the soft hum of the environmental systems that kept all these different species alive in one space. "The evidence is clear," Valdris announced. "Humanity has violated galactic law in numerous ways. You have expanded without permission. You have developed weapons without authorization. You have refused to accept the guidance of your betters. Most seriously, you have shown no respect for the order that has kept this galaxy peaceful for millennia." Hyunwoo nodded again, acknowledging the words without agreeing or disagreeing with them. This seemed to frustrate some of the aliens. The Vorthak clicked their claws more rapidly. The Nathali's colors shifted to a deeper red. "Therefore," Valdris continued, "this council has reached a unanimous decision. Humanity will surrender all military assets to Galactic Authority within 72 standard hours. You will submit to permanent monitoring and guidance as a protected primitive species. Your expansion into space will cease immediately. Your colonies will accept the rule of their regional authorities. Your home system will be placed under direct galactic administration." The words echoed in the vast chamber like the tolling of a funeral bell. Around the circle of seats, alien eyes glittered with satisfaction. They had been patient with humanity long enough. Now it was time for the upstart species to learn their place. "This is not negotiable," Valdris added. "It is not a request. It is a command from the lawful authority of this galaxy. You have 72 hours to comply, or face the consequences of your defiance." For the first time since entering the chamber, Hyunwoo smiled. It was not the diplomatic smile he had worn in countless meetings. It was not the nervous smile of someone trying to avoid trouble. It was something else entirely, something that made several aliens shift uncomfortably in their seats. The smile was gentle, almost pitying. It was the expression of someone who knew a secret that no one else in the room suspected. It was the look of a man watching children play with dangerous toys they didn't understand. "Council Prime Valdris," Hyunwoo said, speaking for the first time since entering the chamber. His voice was calm and respectful, but that strange smile never left his face. "I request a 48-hour delay to consult with my government on Earth." Valdris's blue skin darkened slightly, a sign of irritation among the Cathari. "You have 72 hours to comply, human. Use them wisely." "Thank you for your consideration," Hyunwoo replied with perfect diplomatic courtesy. He bowed slightly to the council, turned, and walked toward the chamber doors with the same measured pace he had used to enter. Behind him, the aliens began to whisper among themselves. Some were disappointed that the human hadn't begged or pleaded. Others were satisfied that humanity's surrender was now inevitable. None of them noticed the small device hidden behind Hyunwoo's left ear, a device that had been broadcasting every word of the proceedings to a receiver countless light years away. As the massive doors closed behind him, Hyunwoo's smile widened, slightly. The message was already racing through quantum space toward Earth, where people far more dangerous than any galactic counselor were waiting to hear exactly these words. The aliens thought they had just delivered an ultimatum to a primitive species. They had no idea what they had actually done. 72 hours, Hyunwoo thought as he walked down the station's gleaming corridors. The Council had given humanity 72 hours to surrender. It would be more than enough time. The message from Hyunwoo reached Earth exactly 18 minutes after the Galactic Council delivered their ultimatum. Deep beneath the bustling streets of Seoul, in chambers carved from solid rock and shielded from every known form of detection, President Jae-min Lee received the transmission with the calm of a man who had been expecting it for decades. The underground facility was known only as Deep 7, and it didn't appear on any map or government document. Officially, it didn't exist. In reality, it was the true center of human government, the place where Earth's most important decisions had been made since humanity first learned they were not alone in the universe. Jae-min sat at the head of a long table made from a single piece of black stone. Around him, the most powerful people in human space gathered with the swift efficiency of a well-rehearsed performance. These were not the politicians and celebrities the galaxy knew about. These were the people who actually ran humanity's expansion, Into the stars, Admiral Mi-young Park entered first, her gray uniform bearing no insignia that any alien would recognize. She commanded more ships than most galactic empires, but her fleets moved in shadows, invisible to the sensors that track the galaxy's official navies. She took her seat to Jae-min's right and placed a small device on the table. Holographic. Displays flickered to life, showing star maps covered in tiny blue dots. General Do-hyun Choi followed, his scarred face telling the story of battles fought in places that officially didn't exist. He had spent 30 years preparing for this moment, training soldiers for a war the galaxy didn't know was coming. His expression was grim, but his eyes held the cold satisfaction of a hunter whose trap was finally springing. Fleet Admiral Soo-jin Yoon arrived with data tablets in both hands, their screens showing ship movements across hundreds of star systems. She oversaw humanity's true industrial capacity, the vast network of hidden shipyards and weapons factories that had been built in the dark spaces between the stars. Her job was to make sure humanity could fight a war that spanned the entire galaxy if necessary. Intelligence Director Tae Young-song slipped into the room so quietly that some people didn't notice her arrival until she was already seated. She knew the secrets of every major species in the galaxy, their weaknesses and fears, their military capabilities and political divisions. For 50 years, her agents had been gathering information while posing as diplomats, traders, and tourists. The last to arrive was Dr. Yoon-hee Kwon, the woman who understood alien biology better than the aliens understood themselves. She had spent decades studying every species humanity had encountered, learning how they thought, how they fought, and most importantly, how they could be defeated. "The Council has made their move," Jae-min said without preamble. His voice was quiet, but it carried clearly through the chamber's perfect acoustics. 72 hours to surrender all military assets and accept permanent subjugation. "Right on schedule," Admiral Park replied, her fingers dancing across her control pad. The holographic display changed, showing new information. "Shadow Fleet. Alpha is in position around the Cathari homeworld. They still don't know we're there." General Choi leaned forward, his weathered hands flat on the table. "The garrison forces are ready. Every human colony has been prepared for this moment. The aliens think they're dealing with scattered settlements and trading posts. They have no idea what's really waiting for them." Dr. Kwon activated her own display, showing detailed biological profiles of every species on the Galactic Council. "The psychological profiles are complete. Each species will react exactly as predicted when they discover the truth. The Cathari will be outraged, the Vorthak will be impressed, the Nathali will panic." Intelligence Director Song spoke for the first time, her voice soft but deadly. "Our assets are in place throughout galactic space. Every major government, every military installation, every communication hub has been infiltrated. When the time comes, we'll know what they're doing before they do." Fleet Admiral Yoon smiled grimly as she updated her reports. "The Titan yards completed the last batch of dreadnoughts yesterday. We now have more heavy warships than the rest of the galaxy combined, and they still think we're building cargo haulers out there." Jae-min nodded as each person delivered their report. This was the culmination of the most complex and ambitious deception in human history. For 50 years, ever since first contact with galactic civilization, humanity had been playing a careful game of appearing weak while growing impossibly strong. The plan had been simple in concept, but incredible in execution. Humanity would present itself as eager but primitive newcomers to galactic society. They would ask for help, accept guidance, and generally behave like the junior species everyone expected them to be. Meanwhile, in secret, they would prepare for the day when the galaxy's true nature revealed itself. "The aliens see what they expect to see," Dr. Kwon explained, highlighting key sections of her psychological profiles. "Every species in the galaxy reached space through conquest and domination. They assume we did the same. When we appeared peaceful and cooperative, they interpreted it as weakness rather than strategy." Admiral Park's display zoomed in on specific star systems, showing the positions of ships that didn't officially exist. "The Shadow Protocol has been in effect since day one. For every ship they know about, we have 10 they don't. For every colony they've registered, we have 5 they've never detected. For every weapon they think we possess, we have 100 they've never imagined." The truth was staggering in its scope. While humanity's public face had been carefully building 23 official colonies, their hidden expansion had claimed over 800 worlds. While their registered fleet numbered in the hundreds, their true armada counted ships in the hundreds of thousands. While they publicly struggled with basic galactic technology, their secret research had advanced far beyond anything the Council possessed. The Asteroid Belt project is complete, Fleet Admiral Yoon reported with obvious pride. The aliens think it's a mining operation. In reality, it's the largest shipyard in galactic history. We've been hollowing out asteroids and turning them into construction facilities for 30 years. The production capacity is beyond anything they can imagine. General Choi activated his own display, showing troop deployments across human space. Every colonist is a trained soldier. Every farmer knows how to operate military equipment. Every trader is an intelligence officer. We've been building an army while they watched us build a civilization. The most crucial element of the plan had been the longest in development. Dr. Chong-Ho Park, humanity's greatest physicist, had made a discovery that changed everything. The quantum foam networks that enabled faster-than-light travel weren't just useful for transportation. They could be manipulated, controlled, and most importantly, weaponized. The quantum manipulation technology is ready for deployment, Dr. Kwon reported, though Park himself was currently stationed at a research facility the aliens would never find. We can disrupt FTL travel across entire sectors. We can destabilize star systems. We can make their ships disappear between one moment and the next. But the most devastating revelation was yet to come. Intelligence Director Song activated a new display, this one showing a three-dimensional map of the entire galaxy. Certain regions pulsed with a soft blue light, indicating active human monitoring and intervention. The aliens have been dependent on us for decades without knowing it, she explained quietly. Stellar collapses, gamma-ray bursts, quantum cascade failures. All the natural disasters that should have destroyed dozens of civilizations. We've been preventing them, stabilizing systems, maintaining the cosmic balance that keeps their worlds habitable. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity hadn't just been preparing to fight the galaxy. They had been secretly protecting it, becoming indispensable to its continued existence while remaining completely invisible. They think they're the guardians of galactic civilization, Jaemin said with a cold smile. They have no idea that we've been the actual guardians all along. Admiral Park checked her chronometer and nodded to the president. All fleets report ready for Phase 1 deployment. We can have ships around every Council world within 6 hours. Phase 2 assets are standing by, General Choi added. Once we reveal our true strength, we can maintain control indefinitely. Phase 3 is prepared but hopefully unnecessary, Dr. Kwon said grimly. If they force us to demonstrate what happens when we stop protecting them, the consequences will be educational. Jaemin stood slowly, his hands resting on the ancient stone table. Around him, the leaders of humanity's secret empire waited for the words that would change galactic history forever. Gentlemen and ladies, he said quietly, the galaxy has demanded our surrender. I think it's time we showed them what surrender actually looks like. The orders went out immediately, racing through quantum space to reach human assets scattered across the galaxy. Ships that had waited in darkness for decades began moving toward their targets. Soldiers who had trained in secret prepared to reveal themselves. Scientists made final adjustments to weapons the aliens couldn't imagine. In 72 hours, the Galactic Council expected humanity's submission. They were going to get something very different. Exactly 48 hours later, Hyun-Woo Kim walked back into the Galactic Council chamber. He moved with the same measured pace as before, but now something was different. The air itself seemed to hum with tension, though the alien delegates couldn't quite identify why. The chamber was packed. Word of humanity's ultimatum had spread throughout galactic space, and representatives from dozens of species had come to witness what they expected would be humanity's formal surrender. Some had traveled vast distances just to see the moment. When the upstart species finally learned their place in the galactic order, Council Prime Valdris sat in his elevated seat, his blue skin gleaming with satisfaction. Around him, the other council members watched Hyun-Woo's approach with barely concealed eagerness. The Vorthak delegation clicked their crystal claws in what might have been applause. The Nathali shimmered with colors that indicated anticipation and pleasure. "Human ambassador," Valdris began, his voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. "You have returned to deliver your species' response to this council's lawful demands. We trust you bring word of humanity's complete and unconditional surrender." Hyunwoo reached the center of the chamber and stopped. For a moment, he stood in perfect silence, his dark eyes moving slowly across the assembled alien faces. Then, for the second time in 3 days, he smiled. It was the same gentle, knowing expression that had puzzled them before, but now it seemed somehow larger, more significant. "Honored Council," Hyunwoo said, his voice calm and respectful. "I bring humanity's response to your ultimatum." He reached into his diplomatic case and withdrew a small device. The aliens leaned forward expectantly, assuming it contained humanity's formal surrender documents. Instead, Hyunwoo placed the device on the chamber floor and stepped back. A holographic projector activated, filling the vast space above their heads with a three-dimensional map of the galaxy. At first, it looked like any standard star chart, the kind used in navigation and trade. But then the image began to change, updating with new information that made several aliens gasp in shock. The map now showed not the 23 human colonies the Council knew about, but 847 human settlements spread across 200 star systems. Blue dots appeared in regions of space the aliens had thought were empty. Colony markers flickered to life in systems they had never bothered to explore. Trade routes connected worlds they didn't know existed. "What is this?" Valdris demanded, his voice rising with confusion and anger. "This map shows impossible data. Humanity has only 23 registered colonies." Hyunwoo's smile widened slightly. "Those are our registered colonies, yes. These are our actual colonies." The chamber erupted in noise as delegates from dozens of species began talking at once. The Zephyrian representative's musical voice rose to a sharp screech. The Molten Hegemony's delegate rumbled like an earthquake. Even the usually calm Cathari began gesturing frantically with all four arms, but the map wasn't finished updating. As the aliens watched in growing horror, new contacts began appearing throughout the display. These weren't colonies or trading posts. These were ships, thousands upon thousands of them, moving with purpose through what the Council had thought was empty space. "Impossible," breathed the Vorthak commander, her crystal form refracting light in patterns that indicated deep shock. "Our sensors would have detected such a fleet." "Your sensors detect what we allow them to detect," Hyunwoo replied politely. "For 50 years, we have been perfecting stealth technology that makes our vessels invisible to galactic detection. Methods? What you're seeing now is our fleet decloaking across the galaxy." The holographic display zoomed in on specific regions, showing massive human battleships emerging from what had appeared to be empty space. Around the Cathari homeworld, 12 dreadnoughts materialized like ghosts becoming solid. Near the Vorthak, Crystal Gardens, an entire battle group revealed itself, weapons powered and ready. Admiral Jin-Ho Nam's voice suddenly echoed through the chamber, transmitted from the bridge of a ship that was now visible on the tactical displays. "Galactic Council Station, this is Admiral Nam aboard the Earth vessel Soul's Pride, requesting permission to dock. We have 50,000 ships requesting similar permission throughout Council space." The number hit the chamber like a physical blow. 50,000 ships was larger than the combined fleets of most galactic powers. The Council's own defense force numbered barely 3,000 vessels, and most of those were patrol craft, unsuited for real combat. "This is deception," Valdris snarled, his diplomatic composure finally cracking. "Some kind of holographic trick designed to make us believe." His words were cut off as Commander Yujin Bei materialized directly behind his chair. She had been standing there for 3 days, invisible and undetected, using technology the Council didn't know existed. Her sudden appearance sent several aliens scrambling for weapons that weren't there. "Not a trick," Yujin said calmly, placing a small recording device on Valdris's desk. "This contains complete records of every council session for the past 5 years, including your private discussions about humanity's eventual enslavement. We've been watching and listening to everything." The implications crashed over the assembled delegates like a tidal wave. If humans could infiltrate the council chamber itself without detection, what else had they compromised? How long had they been watching? How much did they know? Dr. Haiwan Yun appeared on the holographic display, transmitting from a research facility that officially didn't exist. Her image was calm and professional as she began explaining truths that shattered everything the aliens thought they knew about the galaxy. "Honored delegates," she began, "what you have witnessed today is only the beginning of humanity's response to your ultimatum. You demanded our surrender based on the assumption that we were a primitive species unprepared for galactic conflict. This assumption was incorrect. The display changed again, now showing a timeline that stretched back 50 years to humanity's first contact with galactic civilization. But instead of the peaceful exploration narrative the aliens knew, this timeline showed something very different. First contact was not humanity's introduction to your civilization," Dr. Yun continued. "It was the beginning of the most comprehensive intelligence operation in galactic history. Every human diplomat was an intelligence officer. Every trade mission was a reconnaissance expedition. Every cultural exchange was data gathering." The chamber had fallen completely silent. Even the environmental systems seemed to hum more quietly as the aliens struggled to process what they were hearing. "We studied your military capabilities, your political structures, your economic systems, and your psychological profiles," Dr. Yun explained. "We learned your weaknesses and your fears. We mapped your trade routes and your defensive positions. We infiltrated your governments and your military commands." Ambassador So-Young Kim appeared on the display from the bridge of a ship that was clearly visible outside the station's main viewport. The vessel was enormous, easily 3 times the size of the Council's largest dreadnought, and its design incorporated technologies the aliens had never seen before. "We didn't just prepare for war," Ambassador Kim explained. "We prepared for the complete restructuring of galactic civilization. Every major population center is now under human observation. Every military installation is within range of our weapons. Every communication network has been compromised." The Nathali delegate's containment suit began flashing desperate patterns of yellow and white, colors that indicated terror and submission among their species. Several other aliens had gone completely still, the galactic equivalent of playing dead, in hopes that the predator would lose interest. "Why?" Valdris finally managed to ask, his voice barely above a whisper. "Why go to such lengths? Why not simply reveal your true strength from the beginning?" Yunwoo's expression grew almost sad, as if he were explaining something painful to a child. "Because we knew this moment would come. Every species in this galaxy reached space through conquest and domination. You assume all others will do the same. When you encountered a species that appeared peaceful and cooperative, you didn't see it as genuine. You saw it as an opportunity. The truth was devastating in its simplicity. Humanity had known from the very beginning that the galaxy would eventually try to enslave or destroy them. It wasn't pessimism or paranoia. It was simple observation of how galactic civilization actually worked. "You have been patient with us," Hyunwoo continued, "but only because you believed we were helpless. You allowed us to expand because you thought you could stop us whenever you chose. You permitted our independence because you assumed it was temporary." Dr. Chang-Ho Park appeared on the display, speaking from a laboratory that clearly existed in deep space, far from any known star system. Behind him, massive machines hummed with barely contained energy. "The quantum manipulation technology you see here represents 50 years of research into the fundamental forces that hold the galaxy together," he explained. "We have learned not just to use the quantum foam networks for faster-than-light travel, but to control them completely." A demonstration began on the display, showing a small, uninhabited star system. For 30 seconds, the star's light began to flicker and dim as the quantum fields around it destabilized. Thus, the Galactic Council chamber had never been so quiet. For 3 hours after Hyunwoo's revelation, the alien delegates sat in stunned silence, their minds struggling to process the complete reversal of everything they thought they knew. The holographic displays still showed human fleets surrounding their homeworlds, still showed the 800 hidden colonies, still showed the countdown timer that marked their remaining time to decide. Council Prime Valdris was the first to break the silence. His forearms trembled as he activated his communication console, and his blue skin had taken on a pale, sickly tone that indicated extreme stress among the Cathari. "This council demands proof," he said, though his voice lacked its earlier authority. "These claims are impossible. No species could hide such massive operations for 50 years. Our intelligence networks would have detected. His words were cut off as Admiral So-Young Kim's image appeared on the main display. She was standing on the bridge of a ship that defied everything the aliens thought they knew about physics and engineering. The vessel was built around what appeared to be a contained black hole, its gravitational field clearly visible as a dark sphere at the ship's center. "Council Prime Valdris," Admiral Kim said with perfect politeness. "You requested proof. Allow me to provide it." The display changed to show a detailed scan of the Ketheri homeworld. Every military installation was marked with target indicators. Every population center showed human ships in perfect firing position. Every defensive satellite had already been disabled by weapons the Ketheri hadn't even detected. "Your orbital defense grid has been non-functional for 6 hours," Admiral Kim explained. "Your military communications have been compromised for 3 years. Your planetary shield generators are currently under our direct control. If we wished to harm your world, it would have been accomplished before you even knew we were there." Similar displays appeared for every major council world. The Vorthak crystal gardens were surrounded by human ships that could shatter their crystalline cities with precision weapons fire. The Nathali gas colonies were monitored by vessels that could destabilize their atmospheric containment with a single, focused pulse. The Aquatic Confederacy's underwater cities were targeted by submarines that had been observing them undetected for decades. But the most shocking revelation came when Dr. Chang-Ho Park appeared on the display, speaking from his deep space laboratory. Behind him, massive instruments hummed with barely contained energy, and readouts showed real-time data from across the galaxy. "Honored delegates," Dr. Park began, "you have demanded proof of our capabilities. Very well. Observe what happens when we temporarily withdraw our protection from a single star system." The display showed a distant solar system on the edge of Council space, one that contained only automated mining stations with no sentient life. As the aliens watched, subtle changes began to appear in the star's behavior. Solar flares increased in intensity. The magnetic field began to fluctuate. Deep within the star's core, fusion reactions started to become unstable. "This star should have gone nova 8 years ago," Dr. Park explained calmly. "We have been maintaining its stability through controlled manipulation of the quantum foam networks that regulate stellar fusion. Watch what happens when we stop." For exactly 30 seconds, the human intervention ceased. The star's light began to flicker ominously. Its magnetic field collapsed. Solar radiation spiked to levels that would have sterilized any nearby planets. Then, just as quickly, the effect stopped, and the star returned to normal. "This is just one example," Dr. Park continued. "We have been preventing similar disasters throughout the galaxy for decades. Stellar collapses, gamma-ray bursts, cascade failures in the quantum foam network. All managed by human technology while you remained completely unaware." The molten hegemony delegate, a being of living rock and lava, stood on legs that visibly shook. When he spoke, his voice rumbled with barely controlled terror. "Impossible," he said. "No species has such power. The forces you claim to control are beyond any known technology." Dr. Yun-Hee Kwon appeared on the display, her expression patient, but firm. "Your knowledge is limited by your assumptions. Every species in this galaxy developed technology through conquest and warfare. You learned to destroy, not to create. Humanity chose a different path." She activated a new display showing the development of human science over the past century. Unlike the alien races who had focused primarily on weapons and conquest, humanity had pursued understanding of the fundamental forces that governed reality itself. "While you perfected ways to kill each other more efficiently," Dr. Kwon explained, "we learned how matter and energy actually work at the quantum level. While you built bigger weapons, we discovered how to manipulate space and time. While you conquered territories, we learned to reshape reality itself." The truth was devastating. The galaxy's self-appointed masters had spent millennia focused on political control and military dominance. They had never bothered to truly understand the universe they lived in. Humanity, faced with a hostile galaxy, had been forced to become something unprecedented, a species that mastered creation rather than destruction. Intelligence Director Tae-Young Song materialized in the chamber itself, having been invisible, in the back of the room for the entire proceedings. Her sudden appearance caused several aliens to flee their seats in panic. Every government in this galaxy has been infiltrated, she announced calmly. Every military organization has human agents in key positions. Every communication network has been compromised. We know your troop movements before your generals. We read your diplomatic correspondence before your ambassadors receive it. She placed a small device on the central table, and holographic documents began appearing in the air above it. Military plans, secret treaties, private communications between world leaders, intelligence reports that were supposed to be absolutely secure. All of it had been in human hands for years. The Zephyrian Republic's plan to claim the Outer Rim territories, Song continued, highlighting specific documents. The Vorthak Empire's secret weapon development programs. The Cathari conspiracy to divide human space among your allies. We have records of every illegal agreement, every violation of galactic law, every crime you've committed while pretending to be the guardians of civilization. The aliens were no longer just shocked. They were terrified. The complete scope of human infiltration meant that every secret they possessed, every weakness they had tried to hide, every shameful act they had committed in private, was now known to their enemies. Captain Minseo Jung appeared on the display from yet another human vessel, this one clearly positioned near a critical quantum foam junction that connected dozens of star systems. The infrastructure that enables galactic civilization is more fragile than you realize, she explained, gesturing to the swirling energy patterns visible outside her ship. FTL travel, interstellar communication, even the quantum fields that hold matter together at the subatomic level. All of it depends on delicate balances that can be easily disrupted. A new demonstration began, this one showing how human technology could selectively disable FTL travel. Ships attempting to jump to hyperspace simply failed, their engines unable to engage the quantum fields that should have carried them between stars. Communication signals that should have traveled instantly across the galaxy became lost in quantum static. We can isolate entire sectors, Captain Jung continued. Cut off your homeworlds from their colonies. Strand your fleets in empty space. Turn your vast galactic empire into a collection of isolated islands, each one helpless and alone. But the most terrifying revelation was yet to come. Fleet Admiral Su Jin Yoon appeared on the display, speaking from what was clearly the largest space station ever constructed. The structure dwarfed entire moons, its size almost impossible to comprehend. The Titan yards have been in operation for 30 years, Admiral Yoon explained. Hidden in the asteroid fields between Mars and Jupiter, invisible to galactic sensors, we have built the largest shipyard in galactic history. Every year, we produce more vessels than the rest of the galaxy combined. The display showed the true scale of human industrial capacity. Thousands of ships in various stages of construction. Weapons that incorporated technologies the aliens couldn't imagine. Defensive systems that could protect entire star systems from any conceivable attack. Our current active fleet numbers 400,000 vessels, Admiral Yoon continued. Our reserve fleet contains another 600,000 ships. Our production capacity can replace any losses within months. Even if every species in the galaxy united against us, you would be outnumbered 10-1. The countdown timer showed 68 hours and 17 minutes remaining. In that time, the Galactic Council had to decide whether to accept humanity's terms or face the consequences of their refusal. Valdris finally found his voice, though it came out as barely more than a whisper. What do you want from us? Hyunwoo stepped forward, his expression still wearing that gentle, patient smile. We want what you demanded from us. Complete and unconditional surrender. The terms were simple and non-negotiable. The Galactic Council would formally recognize humanity as the protectorate power of the galaxy. All military forces would be placed under human command. All major decisions affecting GAL. 7 days after the Galactic Council's surrender, President Na Young-shin stood before a holographic assembly that included representatives from every known species in the galaxy. The transmission was being broadcast to billions of worlds, reaching every corner of galactic civilization. Her words would reshape the political structure that had existed for millennia. The surrender had come with just 4 hours remaining on the countdown timer. Council Prime Valdris had personally delivered the formal capitulation documents, his forearms shaking as he signed away the authority his species had held for over 1,000 years. One by one, The other council members had followed, each signature marking the end of their dominance and the beginning of humanity's reign. "Citizens of the galaxy," President Shin began, her voice calm and confident as it reached across the stars. "Today marks the beginning of a new era in galactic civilization, an era of honest leadership, genuine protection, and sustainable peace." The transition had been surprisingly smooth. Most species, upon learning the truth about humanity's protective role, had embraced the change with relief rather than resentment. The revelation that humans had been secretly preventing cosmic disasters for decades had transformed the narrative from conquest to rescue. The Aquatic Confederacy's representative, a large being with translucent skin and gills, spoke first during the question period. Her voice carried the liquid tones of her species, but the words were clear and grateful. "For generations, we feared the cosmic storms that destroyed our outer colonies," she said. "We lost 3 entire worlds to quantum cascade failures before humanity arrived. We haven't lost a single settlement since. We are grateful to finally understand why." Similar testimonies came from across the galaxy. The singing worlds had lost entire star systems to stellar collapses before human intervention began. The Crystal Dominion had watched helplessly as gamma-ray bursts sterilized their frontier territories. The peaceful species that had suffered under the old system's protection were discovering that humanity had been their true guardians all along. Admiral Sang-wook appeared on the display from the bridge of his flagship, which now served as the central command vessel for galactic defense coordination. Behind him, officers from dozens of different species worked side by side with human personnel, integrating their fleets under the new command structure. "The consolidation of galactic military forces is proceeding ahead of schedule," Admiral O reported. "Rather than resistance, we are finding cooperation from most planetary defense forces. They understand that unified command under human leadership provides better protection than the scattered, competing militaries of the old system." The truth was that most alien officers were relieved to serve under commanders who actually understood the cosmic forces they were defending against. Human tactical doctrine, refined through decades of secret observation and experience, proved superior to the traditional galactic approaches that focused on conquest rather than protection. Fleet Admiral Yoon's image joined the display from the newly revealed Titan yards, where alien observers were getting their first look at humanity's true industrial capacity. The massive facility stretched across multiple asteroid fields, its size dwarfing anything previously built by galactic civilization. "Integration of galactic shipbuilding capacity with human facilities is proceeding smoothly," Admiral Yoon reported. "We are sharing our advanced construction techniques with allied species while upgrading their existing shipyards to meet new defensive requirements." The few species that had attempted resistance discovered that humanity's approach to rebellion was characteristically thorough and precise. The warlike Bravak, a species that had built their entire culture around military dominance, had declared war on humanity within hours of the surrender announcement. General Hai Jin Yang's image appeared on the display, speaking from orbit around the Bravak homeworld. Behind her, the planet's surface was clearly visible, showing normal cities and normal weather patterns. "The Bravak resistance lasted exactly 6 hours and 32 minutes, General Yang reported matter-of-factly. "We did not fire a single weapon. We simply discontinued the artificial magnetic field enhancement that keeps their planet habitable. Their natural magnetic field is insufficient to protect them from solar radiation." The demonstration had been perfect in its precision. The Bravak had surrendered the moment they realized their entire world would become uninhabitable without human intervention. The magnetic field was restored immediately upon their surrender, and no permanent damage was done. The lesson, however, was clear to every species watching. Dr. Kyung-Soo Lim appeared next, speaking from the newly established Galactic Maintenance Corps headquarters. The facility was built around one of humanity's deep space research stations, now expanded to accommodate the thousands of alien scientists who had volunteered to join the protective mission. "The formalization of our protective activities is proceeding excellently," Dr. Lim reported. "We now have over 12,000 alien scientists working directly with our quantum manipulation teams. They are learning not just how to maintain cosmic stability, but why such maintenance is necessary." The educational aspect was crucial to the New Order's success. For the first time in galactic history, the various species were learning about the true forces that governed their universe. They discovered that the peaceful, stable galaxy they had taken for granted was actually a fragile construct that required constant maintenance. The Cathari delegate, former Council Prime Valdris himself, stood to address the assembly. His tone was humble, almost reverent, as he spoke about his species' newfound understanding. "We ruled the galaxy for 1,000 years," he said quietly. "We believed our wisdom and experience made us natural leaders. We never realized we were children playing with forces we didn't understand, protected by guardians we never knew existed." The Vorthak commander, her crystalline form now displaying patterns of respect rather than aggression, added her own perspective. "We prized strength above all else. We see now that true strength lies not in the ability to destroy, but in the power to preserve and protect." Even the Nethali, whose gaseous forms had once shimmered with hostility, now displayed the calming blue patterns that indicated peace and acceptance. Their representatives spoke in harmonic tones that translated as gratitude. "We thought we understood the quantum forces that enable our existence," the Nethali delegate said. "Humanity has shown us that we were manipulating shadows while they worked with the fundamental forces of reality itself." Ambassador Young-Hoon Ko appeared on the display from the newly established Galactic Administration Center built into what had once been the Council's primary station. The facility was now 3 times its original size, expanded with human technology to accommodate the complex task of managing galactic civilization. "The administrative transition is complete," Ambassador Ko reported. "All major governmental functions are now operating under the new system. Local autonomy has been preserved while strategic oversight ensures galactic stability. The new system was elegant in its simplicity. Each species retained control over their internal affairs, their cultures, and their local governments. But matters that affected galactic stability, interstellar war, territorial expansion, large-scale technology development, and cosmic maintenance fell under human authority." President Shin smiled as she addressed the final questions from the assembled representatives. It was the same patient, knowing expression that Hyun-woo had worn in the council chamber, but now it carried the weight of accepted authority rather than hidden knowledge. "Some of you have asked why humanity chose this path, rather than simply revealing our capabilities from the beginning," she said. "The answer is simple. We needed to understand who you really were before we could determine how best to help you." The truth was that humanity's 50-year deception had served multiple purposes. It had allowed them to gather intelligence and prepare for conflict, yes, but it had also let them study galactic civilization's fundamental character. They had learned which species could be trusted, which needed careful guidance, and which required firm control. "We discovered that most of you are good people trapped in a bad system," President Shin continued. "The old galactic order encouraged competition, conflict, and conquest. Our new system will emphasize cooperation, protection, and sustainable growth." The broadcast concluded with a ceremony that would have been impossible under the old system. Representatives from hundreds of species took formal oaths of cooperation, pledging to work together under human leadership for the protection and advancement of galactic civilization. As the transmission ended, President Shin remained standing before the cameras for a moment longer. Behind her, through the windows of the administration center, human and alien ships moved in perfect formation, no longer as separate fleets, but as components of a unified galactic defense force. The irony was not lost on her. The galaxy's demand for human capitulation had resulted in humanity's complete control over galactic civilization. But unlike the previous rulers, humanity had achieved dominance not through conquest, but through the revelation of indispensability. The former masters had ruled through fear and force. Humanity ruled through the simple reality that the galaxy could not survive with O. 1 year later, Hyun-woo Kim stood once again in the Galactic Council chamber, but everything had changed. The same curved walls and soaring ceiling remained, but now they were reinforced with human technology that could withstand anything from solar flares to quantum storms. The chamber that had once been a symbol of alien dominance had become the administrative heart of humanity's galactic protectorate. The seating arrangement told the story of the transformation. Where once alien delegates had looked down on a single human ambassador, now representatives from hundreds of species sat in equals chairs, with humans occupying the central coordination positions. The old hierarchy of dominance had been replaced by a structure based on capability and responsibility. Hyunwoo now held the title of Galactic Administrator, a position that hadn't existed under the old system. His role was not to rule the various species, but to coordinate their activities and ensure that galactic civilization continued to function safely and efficiently. The difference was crucial, and it showed in how the other delegates interacted with him. Former Council Prime Valdris approached the central podium where Hyunwoo was reviewing daily reports. His blue skin no longer held the proud gleam of absolute authority, but neither did it show the defeated pallor of the surrender day. Instead, Valdris looked like what he had become, a competent administrator working within a larger, more effective system. Administrator Kim, Valdris said, using the formal address that had replaced the old titles. I have a question that has troubled me for months. Hyunwoo looked up from his data pad, his expression showing the same patient attention he had always given to galactic affairs. Please ask freely. That smile, Valdris said, his forearms gesturing toward the spot where Hyunwoo had stood during the original ultimatum. When we delivered our demands for humanity's surrender, you smiled. You knew, didn't you? You knew exactly what was going to happen. The question had been asked by dozens of delegates over the past year, each trying to understand the moment when their world had changed forever. Hyunwoo's response had become something of a legend among the diplomatic community, told and retold, as species tried to comprehend the depth of human planning. Yes, Hyunwoo said simply. I knew. He gestured for Valdris to walk with him toward the chamber's main viewing port, where the traffic of galactic civilization was clearly visible. Human ships moved alongside alien vessels in perfect coordination, no longer as separate fleets but as integrated components of a unified system. The ultimatum wasn't a surprise to us, Hyunwoo explained. It was the inevitable conclusion of a carefully orchestrated plan that began 50 years ago. Strategic Director Bora Jeon materialized beside them, her holographic image transmitted from the deep space facility where humanity's long-term planning operations were coordinated. Her presence added weight to Hyunwoo's explanation, as she was known throughout the galaxy as the architect of humanity's strategic doctrine. Every action humanity took during our 50 years in galactic space was calculated to produce exactly this result, Director Jeon explained. We studied each species' decision-making patterns, cultural blind spots, and strategic assumptions. We knew that eventually the galaxy would demand our submission. The revelation was staggering in its implications. The Council's ultimatum hadn't been their own idea at all. It had been humanity's plan, planted so carefully through decades of psychological manipulation that the aliens had believed it was their own conclusion. You made us want to conquer you, Valdris said, his voice filled with a mixture of admiration and horror. You manipulated us into making the exact demand that would justify your takeover. Hyunwoo nodded, his expression remaining gentle but serious. Every violation of galactic law was carefully calculated. Every act of apparent defiance was designed to provoke a specific response. We needed you to overreach, to reveal your true nature, to provide moral justification for what would otherwise have appeared to be unprovoked aggression. Dr. H.A. Kim joined the conversation from her laboratory, where she continued to study the psychological patterns that governed interstellar politics. Her research had been crucial to understanding how different species would react to humanity's eventual revelation. The beauty of the plan was its psychological elegance, Dr. Kim explained. We didn't force you to attack us. We simply created conditions where your own nature would lead you to make that choice. The ultimatum was inevitable, because conquest and domination are how galactic civilization has always worked. The scope of the manipulation was breathtaking. For 50 years, humanity had been carefully shaping galactic politics, ensuring that tensions would build in exactly the right way to produce the confrontation they wanted. Every diplomatic crisis, every trade dispute, every territorial disagreement had been subtly influenced to create the conditions for their ultimate victory. But the manipulation went deeper than politics, Hyunwoo continued. We also ensured that the galaxy would be dependent on our protection, even though they didn't know it existed. The viewing port's display changed to show a real-time map of galactic maintenance operations. Thousands of human vessels were scattered across known space, each one monitoring and maintaining the cosmic forces that kept star systems stable. It was a network of protection so vast and comprehensive that its sudden withdrawal would have catastrophic consequences. We didn't just prepare to defend ourselves, Director Jian explained. We made ourselves indispensable to galactic survival. By the time you demanded our surrender, you were already completely dependent on our continued protection. Valdris stared at the display showing humanity's protective network, understanding finally dawning in his alien features. You made it so we couldn't destroy you without destroying ourselves. More than that, Hyunwoo said. We made it so you wouldn't want to destroy us once you understood what we actually do. The revelation of our protective role transformed the narrative from conquest to rescue. The psychological warfare had been perfect in its execution. When the galaxy's various species learned that humans had been secretly preventing cosmic disasters for decades, their anger at being deceived was overwhelmed by gratitude for being protected. The would-be conquerors became willing subjects almost overnight. A new signal appeared on the chamber's communication system, indicating an incoming transmission from the distant reaches, a region of space beyond the galaxy's outer rim. Hyunwoo accepted the call, and the viewing port filled with the image of beings unlike any the galaxy had encountered before. They were tall, angular creatures with metallic skin and eyes that glowed with internal fire. Their leader wore what appeared to be armor made from the shells of space-dwelling creatures, and his voice carried the arrogance of someone accustomed to absolute dominance. "Primitive galaxy dwellers," the being announced. "I am War Commander, Thax of the Stellar Dominion. We have observed your pathetic civilization from afar and find it suitable for conquest. You will surrender all military assets within 10 standard cycles and prepare to accept our rule." The demand was almost identical to the one the Galactic Council had delivered to humanity a year earlier. The same arrogant tone, the same assumption of superiority, the same expectation of easy victory over what appeared to be a weaker civilization. Hyunwoo's response was to smile. It was the same patient, knowing expression he had worn in this very chamber 12 months ago. But now Valdris and the other delegates understood its true meaning. It wasn't resignation or nervousness. It was anticipation. "War Commander." "Thax," Hyunwoo replied politely. "We thank you for your message. Please allow us 72 hours to consider your generous offer." The alien commander's glowing eyes narrowed with suspicious satisfaction. "Wise. We will return for your surrender in 3 cycles. Do not disappoint us." The transmission ended, leaving the chamber in thoughtful silence. Around the room, delegates from dozens of species watched Hyunwoo with expressions ranging from concern to anticipation. They had learned enough about human methods to suspect what was coming next. "You're going to do it again, aren't you?" Valdris asked, though his tone suggested he already knew the answer. Hyunwoo's smile widened slightly as he activated his communication system. Across the galaxy, signals began racing toward human assets that the Stellar Dominion had no idea existed. Ships began moving from hidden positions. Weapons systems that made the previous year's revelations look primitive began powering up. An intelligence network that had been quietly studying the distant reaches for decades activated for full operation. "The universe is full of civilizations that believe might makes right," Hyunwoo said, watching the status reports flow across his display. "Our role as galactic protectors requires us to teach them otherwise." Dr. Chang-Ho Park appeared on the display from his research facility, where new technologies that defied conventional understanding were being prepared for deployment. Behind him, machines that could manipulate the fundamental forces of reality hummed with barely contained power. "The Stellar Dominion bases their expansion on quantum displacement technology," Dr. Park reported. "They believe their ability to move between dimensions makes them invincible. They have no idea that we've been monitoring interdimensional space for decades." Strategic Director Jian's image joined the display.